That day, I accidentally held a folder above my head, and the light shining through the papers revealed secrets hidden within. It contained classified data from the entire space agency. I intended to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but when I looked up, I realized I could use that hidden information to solve the problem on the blackboard. So I climbed the ladder and began calculating the rocket's trajectory. Within hours, I had solved a problem that had been stumping the entire space agency. But instead of applause, I was met with interrogation. I told the director straight out that I had seen the contents through the light. After learning the truth, the director realized I was a rare mathematical genius. He ordered that materials no longer be blacked out and gave me access to classified information. However, the very next day, I clashed with the director because my seat was always empty. Nobody knew where I'd gone. When I returned soaking wet, the director ignored my disheveled state and angrily questioned me. I could no longer hold back, as I was practically being denied even the right to use the bathroom.
There is no bathroom. There are no colored bathrooms in this building, or any building outside the West Campus, which is half a mile away. Did you know that?
I vented my frustration, thinking I'd lose my job. To my surprise, the next day the director publicly removed the colored-only sign from the bathroom door in front of everyone. The director didn't care about skin color, only ability. I had shown remarkable mathematical talent since childhood. However, my life hadn't been smooth sailing. A failed marriage left me raising 3 children alone. Fortunately, thanks to my computational skills, I found a decent position at the space agency. Even though it was just a cramped, humid basement, it brought together many black women like myself. In 1961, the Soviet Union's successful rocket launch put enormous pressure on America. The space agency desperately needed to fast-track rocket development. They had purchased computers, but before the equipment arrived, they urgently needed a mathematician. Yet not a single person in the entire white building could handle complex analytical geometry problems. So they turned to the colored computing group, where Supervisor Dorothy recommended me because I could always handle complex data. The demanding work kept me constantly on edge, so coffee became my way of relieving stress. However, when I reached for the coffee pot, everyone stared at me strangely. They couldn't tolerate sharing the same items with a black person. Realizing my mistake, I could only return to my seat in embarrassment. Though no one spoke, their looks said everything. The next day I saw a smaller pot next to the original coffee pot, labeled colored only. I was the only black person in the office, but I was already used to all this. I forced myself to endure the discrimination and picked up the coffee pot, only to find it contained no coffee prepared for the scientists. Facing such blatant discrimination, I firmly believed, don't get angry about obstacles in your path, keep pursuing excellence, and someday your talents will receive the recognition they deserve. At this point, Russia had successfully sent a person into space and completed orbital flight around Earth. This was quite a blow to America. We had lost this space race decisively. Under such enormous pressure, the director called an emergency meeting overnight, pointing out that the reason for our failure was that the other side worked harder. He refused to believe the Russians were technologically superior. Therefore, he decided to work around the clock, starting immediately until we caught up. But while everyone was frantically busy, the director noticed I was frequently absent because I was running through the rain to the West Wing. In the bathroom, I tried to dry the rainwater with paper towels, only to find that the colored bathroom wasn't equipped with these basics. Even the soap dispenser was empty. Soaking wet, I felt utterly exhausted for the first time. When I returned to the office, I looked like a drowned rat. The director had reached his limit with my behavior and demanded to know what I was doing every day. When he learned I was just using the bathroom, he was furious. What should take minutes was taking me an hour, and his criticism became the last straw. I complained that there was no designated bathroom for black people here.
I have to walk to Timbuktu just to relieve myself. And I can't use one of the handy bikes. Picture that, Mr. Harrison. My uniform, skirt below my knees, my heels, and a simple string of pearls. Well, I don't own pearls. Lord knows you don't pay colored enough to afford pearls. And I work like a dog, day and night, living off of coffee from a pot none of you want to touch. Excuse me if I had to go to the restroom a few times a day.
When you become powerful enough, even rules will make way for you. If you can't change racial prejudice, then use your strength to break through it. Through everyone's joint efforts, the day of the rocket launch finally arrived. We gathered around the television to witness this important moment. Unfortunately, Freedom's 7-second flight encountered setbacks. The landing point deviated from our calculations, and the return capsule failed to land at the predetermined location. Fortunately, the rescue team arrived in time and the astronaut was spared, but the space capsule sank to the ocean floor and disappeared. The director was severely questioned by his superiors, making the astronauts for subsequent missions uneasy. Facing enormous pressure, I hoped to participate in meetings. Time was of the essence, but I always missed the latest updates, and every information change required new calculations. However, just as I handed my calculations to the leadership, I was told that the direct flight time had changed again 6 minutes earlier. This was the fourth time today. Data changes meant I had to recalculate everything. When the data changed yet again, we got into another argument. The director witnessed this scene, and I seized the opportunity to express my thoughts. The director agreed to let me attend the meetings. Walking into the conference room, I felt everyone's strange looks. Facing so many high-level officials made me somewhat nervous. The military wanted to narrow the landing area to within 50 square kilometers to ensure safe recovery of the space capsule. The director chose to trust me. He handed me a piece of chalk, gesturing for me to give it a try. I walked confidently to the blackboard. I had never doubted my computational abilities. I calmly worked through the calculations on the blackboard, writing out the answer in just 2 hours and winning over everyone present with my talent. After 5 unmanned flight tests, the space agency confirmed that the new computer could handle all tasks. That day, the director approached me. Due to the unmatched supercomputing capability, calculators were no longer needed here. Technological progress is like a double-edged sword. It brings tremendous change, but also causes many people to lose their jobs. I had to leave temporarily. After exactly 3 years and 2 months of preparation, the day of the rocket launch finally arrived. However, just hours before launch, the director discovered a problem. Today's landing coordinates didn't match yesterday's. Most troubling was their uncertainty about whether yesterday's data was wrong or today's was incorrect. The director realized the severity of the problem and immediately sent an assistant to find me. The assistant didn't dare delay and rushed to the West Wing computing group with the files. I had walked this path countless times in high heels. The assistant was already sweating profusely on his first trip. After receiving the materials, I immediately began calculating. I knew this would determine the success or failure of the launch and recovery. The launch site was already crowded with people, and the astronaut was in position. Now they were waiting for my results. While everyone waited anxiously, I finally completed the calculations. I immediately ran to the control center. However, I was still met with cold discrimination. At that moment, I understood that no matter how excellent you are, you cannot change some people's prejudices. Just as I was leaving in disappointment, the director pushed the door open and held up his badge, signaling me to enter. As the countdown ended, the rocket soared into the sky. After successfully reaching the designated orbit, I remained so nervous I didn't dare move a step. 10 hours later, the rocket safely landed at the coordinates I had calculated, and the weight finally lifted from my heart. With my solid abilities, I was eventually allowed to stay with the launch team. I finally gained my colleagues' recognition. Even Hilton, who had once looked down on me, personally poured me coffee as a sign of respect. This proved that all respect comes from one's own strength. In the years that followed, Catherine continued her computational work, handling calculations for Apollo 11's moon landing and other space-related missions. To recognize her outstanding contributions to aviation, in 2016, NASA named a computer building the Katherine Johnson Building. When she was 97, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. As a black female scientist, she faced 3 mountains of obstruction. The first was race, the second was gender, and the third was race plus gender. But she earned respect through ability, courageously denounced injustice, and defeated arrogance and prejudice through brilliant achievement. She was a driver of progress and a true hero. When the light of fairness shone through the barriers of discrimination, from initially facing deliberately obscure data as harassment to now having her calculations amaze and convince everyone, from initially being accompanied by fellow black women in the basement to now contributing her strength to the space race, from childhood talent shining like stars to now becoming a legendary light in the aerospace world. This was not just a display of her abilities, but testimony to her transformation. In this world, no effort goes to waste, and no success is accidental. Everything falls into place naturally. No one's life is smooth sailing. Those who hold bouquets of flowers have all walked through thorns to get there. We often say there's no standard answer to the path of success. Everyone has their own way to stand. Of course, you can also choose to put on boxing gloves and fight with all your might. No matter how murky water becomes, with enough settling it will become crystal clear. No matter how slow a person may be, with enough effort, they can still rewrite their destiny.